The USS Horizon moved through space like a silent arrow, cutting across the darkness with calm confidence. It was humanity's newest and most advanced starship, built after years of hard work, sacrifice, and dreams. The ship carried a crew of 24 people, each chosen from thousands who had applied for the mission. They were scientists, engineers, pilots, explorers, and researchers. They were ready to push into space farther than any human had gone before, and for the first time in their lives, they were on a ship so new that everything gleamed as if made yesterday. The Horizon's main control deck glowed with soft blue lights. Every screen showed perfect readings. Every system worked at full efficiency. Crew members walked from station to station, checking equipment, testing sensors, and confirming navigation paths. Even though they had launched only 10 hours ago, the crew already felt excited and hopeful. For them, this journey was not just work, it was history. The ship's AI, named Eris, monitored everything quietly. Her voice was calm and polite. She watched the engines, the life support, the temperature, and the ship's rotation. She tracked the stars outside and ran thousands of calculations every second. To the crew, she was both a tool and a companion. She did not have emotions, but her tone was friendly enough that people liked talking to her. Commander Rian Hale stood at the center of the bridge, observing the screens with steady eyes. He was experienced, calm, and respected. His dark hair had already turned silver at the sides, giving him a thoughtful look. He believed deeply in humanity's future in space, and he had spent years preparing for this mission. Now, finally, he stood on a ship capable of reaching distant stars. Beside him, Lieutenant Mara Donnell typed on a console. She was the ship's main pilot, younger than Ryan but extremely skilled. She came from a small town far from the city lights, and she had always dreamed of flying. Now, she controlled one of the most advanced vessels ever built. In another corner, Dr. Yelena Voss checked her scanners. She was a scientist who specialized in deep space signals. She loved the unknown more than anything else. If the universe hid secrets, she wanted to be the first to discover them. The first hours of the mission remained peaceful. Everything worked exactly as planned. The engines ran smoothly, the course was stable, and space around them was quiet. The crew rotated duty shifts, ate their meals, and settled into their new environment. Some explored the hallways and rooms of the Horizon, admiring the technology. Others sat in the observation deck, watching stars drift by. The ship was large enough to feel like a moving habitat, not just a machine. But late into the first night, something strange happened. Dr. Yelena sat in her lab, watching data streams scroll across her screen. She expected to see ordinary background radiation, the normal static of the universe. Instead, she noticed a small spike in the readings, almost too faint to catch. At first she thought it was a calibration issue. She adjusted her equipment, cleaned the filters, and reset the system. But the spike remained. It was small, steady, and rhythmic, like a heartbeat in the noise. She frowned and leaned closer. Eris, confirm this reading. The AI responded instantly. Confirming. The signal is present on multiple sensors. What kind of signal? Unknown. It contains rhythm and structure. It does not match natural background noise. Yelena felt a chill of excitement run through her. She tapped her communication badge. Commander Hale, please come to the science lab. You need to see this. Commander Rian arrived a few minutes later, walking briskly. What is it? Yelena pointed at the screen. This. We're picking up something unusual. Rian studied the waveform. Could be interference. I thought so too, she said. But it's too organized for that. And it's getting stronger. Mara soon joined them, her expression curious. We're not near anything that should cause interference. Yelena nodded. Exactly. And Eris confirms, it isn't coming from our own systems. Rian folded his arms. Where is it coming from? That's the strange part. It looks like it's coming from ahead of our trajectory, but it's very far away. Could it be a star? Mara asked. No, stars don't send signals like this, not with patterns. Rian remained silent, thinking. We just launched today. It's too early for surprises. Yelena smiled slightly. Space does not care about our schedules. Rian sighed. So true. For several minutes, they watched the signal fluctuate. It was faint, but persistent. Like someone knocking on a distant door. But the knock carried rhythm. Almost like it was trying to say something. Later that night, more crew members gathered in the lab. Engineers checked their devices, technicians compared data, and everyone grew curious. Some believed it was an early sign of a new star phenomenon. Others believed it might be debris reflecting signals in an unusual way. But Yelena did not agree. She felt certain this was something intelligent. As the hours passed, small anomalies began occurring throughout the ship. At first, they were harmless. A light flickered in one hallway. A maintenance drone restarted itself. A water dispenser paused for 3 seconds before working again. These events were minor enough that most crew members ignored them. But Eris noticed. The AI reported every unusual behavior. Minor system irregularities detected. Investigating. Rian listened carefully. Eris, are these related to the signal? Correlation cannot be confirmed, she replied. However, the timing suggests a possible link. The commander exchanged a look with Mara. So we have a mysterious signal. Strange ship behavior. And no explanation. And it's our first night, Mara said with a small, uneasy laugh. The next anomaly was harder to ignore. In the hydroponics room, gravity dropped for almost 1 second. Plants lifted from their trays before falling back down. The gardener on duty nearly shouted through the ship's comm system in surprise. Eris repeated her message. Gravity fluctuation detected. Investigating cause. Rian pressed his fingers against his forehead. This is not normal. Yelena walked in again, holding new readings. Commander. The signal just changed. Everyone turned. It's getting clearer, she said. More structured. Rian took a deep breath. Show me. The screen displayed the waveform once more. But this time, the pattern was sharper. It repeated more consistently. It felt like communication. A message. The crew stood around the display in silence. Each person aware that something important was happening. Something outside the ship. Outside human experience. Eris began analyzing it more deeply. The signal contains repeating intervals. Fourier analysis suggests encoded information. Can you decode it? Rian asked. Not yet, but I can translate rhythm into bass tones. A moment later, soft sounds played through the lab speakers. The crew listened carefully. The signal sounded like a calm, echoing pulse, rising and falling like an artificial wave. Yelena closed her eyes to feel the rhythm better. She sensed purpose in it. Something was trying to speak to them. The horizon drifted silently as the crew studied the strange pulse. The stars outside glowed softly, distant and peaceful. But inside the ship, minds raced. Hours later, after long analysis, Eris spoke again. The signal source maintains distance but appears to react to our movement. Rian frowned. What do you mean? React? When the ship changed speed earlier, the signal frequency shifted slightly. When we adjusted our direction, the signal paused briefly, then resumed at a new tone. So it is not random, Mara said. No, Yelena whispered. The crew fell quiet. Some felt fear. Others felt excitement. But no one felt neutral. Eris continued. Given the consistency of the structure, there is a 93% chance the signal is artificial. Rian exhaled slowly. This early in the mission, and we may already be making contact. Yelena nodded. Or, someone is warning us. Rian raised an eyebrow. Warning? Think about it, she explained. The signal is rhythmic, cautious, distant. It doesn't push into our systems. It doesn't try to disrupt anything seriously. It just makes small touches, like someone tapping the surface of water, testing the ripples. That's a poetic way to say it, Mara said. It's the only way I can say it, Yelena replied quietly. Rian leaned forward and spoke more firmly. Eris, what is the signal's origin point now? Approximately 4 light hours ahead, she replied. Is it moving? No. It remains stationary relative to our trajectory. Then we're moving toward it, Mara said. Yes, Eris confirmed. If we continue on our current course, we will reach the signal's source in approximately 18 hours. That information settled over the room heavily. Humanity had traveled into deep space with dreams of exploration, discovery, and advancement. But none of them expected the first encounter to happen this quickly. The strange part was that the ship's first real signal, its first communication from outside, did not come from another human crew, another human installation, or even a known source. It came from something else, something ahead of them, something that waited silently in the dark. Rian dismissed the crew for rest, but nobody slept comfortably. Everyone felt a low hum of tension. Even the quiet corridors felt like they were listening. In her quarters, Yelena listened to a recording of the signal again. She felt certain it was not meant to frighten them. But it was not friendly either. It felt like a cautious hand reaching out. A hand that had no idea what humans were like. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Tomas checked every system twice. The engines hummed in perfect rhythm. But he still worried. Machines did not usually behave strangely without reason. If the anomalies continued, he would need answers. Mara lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. She tried to imagine what kind of mind created that signal. A being? A machine? A civilization? A lone traveler in the dark? Rian sat alone in the observation deck, watching the stars. He had always believed humanity would one day meet something beyond Earth. He just did not expect it to happen on day one. Eris, meanwhile, continued monitoring everything. She watched the signal, the ship, the crew, and the cosmos. She did not fear anything, but she calculated possibilities, and one possibility grew stronger. This encounter would change the mission completely. When the ship entered its next cycle, the signal grew stronger again, more rhythmic, more focused, and then something new appeared on Yelena's screen. Not just rhythm, not just tone, but a pattern that looked like language. She froze, staring at it. The ship had not even completed its first day in deep space, and already the universe was speaking back. And whatever it was saying, it wasn't coming from the crew. The signal did not stop. If anything, it grew stronger and more precise as the USS Horizon moved through the silent emptiness of space. Commander Rian Hale sat on the edge of the observation deck, staring at the dark expanse dotted with stars. He could see nothing unusual outside, yet the ship's instruments told a different story. The rhythm that had begun as faint pulses now seemed deliberate, almost intentional. It was as if someone or something was trying to communicate. Eris, analyze the latest transmission again, Rian said, his voice steady but tense. The AI responded immediately. Analysis complete, Commander. The signal contains repeating structures consistent with syntactic patterns. Translation attempt suggests rudimentary language forms. Probability of successful interpretation, 57%. Rian exhaled slowly. 57% was not high, but it was enough to make him lean forward, interested and cautious. Try anyway. A soft hum filled the bridge as Eris processed the data. Moments later, a synthesized voice spoke through the communication system. The words were clear, in perfect English, though the phrasing was strange, almost alien. Do not proceed. They are watching. The message caused a ripple of unease among the crew. Lieutenant Mara Donnell, seated at her station, raised an eyebrow. Well, that's ominous. Dr. Yelena Voss, who had been staring at the translated data on her screen, frowned. Ominous doesn't begin to describe it. This is intelligence, and it's warning us. Commander Hale ran a hand through his hair. A warning from what? A satellite? Another ship? An alien vessel? No physical origin detected yet, Eris replied. The signal appears to emanate from the nebula ahead. Sensor penetration is limited. Attempts to scan the source produce interference patterns not consistent with known natural phenomena. That means we don't know what it is, Mara said quietly, her fingers tapping the console nervously. Exactly, Yelena said. And yet, it's communicating. The crew spent the next few hours reviewing every system and sensor, trying to find even a clue to the signal's source. Nothing moved outside the ship. No asteroid, no debris, no energy signature. And yet, the pattern persisted, following them as the horizon moved closer to the nebula. "Eris," Rian said after a long silence. "Could the ship itself be influencing the signal? Could the ship itself be influencing the signal?" "Unlikely, Commander," the AI responded. "The signal was detected immediately after launch and before any human interaction with experimental systems. Correlation suggests external origin." The thought that something outside the ship was observing them sank in. The horizon was alone in deep space, yet they were not alone. Someone or something watched them. By the next shift, the crew began to experience subtle anomalies. It began with small things: lights flickering in unison, a temperature shift in one of the hallways, instruments briefly showing unusual readings. Each incident was minor, almost ignorable, but when taken together, patterns emerged. Gravity fluctuations occurred once more, this time in the crew's quarters. Objects lifted from shelves for a moment, then settled back down gently. No one was injured, but the sudden movement startled several people. "Eris, what caused that?" Commander Hale asked, his voice calm but firm. "Unknown," the AI replied. "The temporal and spatial characteristics of the event correlate with the signal. Probability of connection: 84%. Mara rubbed her arms. "So it's not just a warning. It's interacting with us or with the ship." Yelena's eyes widened. "Exactly. I've never seen anything like this. The signal is aware." The bridge was silent for a moment, each person processing the implication. To think that something beyond humanity's understanding was actively observing them stirred both fear and excitement. Later, during a scheduled exercise, the Horizon's communication system acted up. A static-filled voice whispered faintly, almost imperceptibly, repeating the same warning. Crew members checked microphones, headsets, and recording devices. Nothing in the system should have produced that sound. Yet, it had come from somewhere, and only those on duty at that moment heard it. "This is no coincidence," Mara said firmly. "We are being tested, or at least monitored." The idea unsettled Rian. Monitored by whom? Why now? We've barely left the solar system. Yelena leaned closer to her display. "Perhaps because this is the first deep space vessel capable of meeting them. Or perhaps they've been waiting for a species to reach this stage. We don't know." Rian nodded slowly. "So we proceed cautiously. But we proceed. Keep recording everything. Keep monitoring. Keep monitoring." For the next several hours, the crew worked in quiet focus. Some repaired minor systems, others double-checked sensor calibrations. But everyone felt the same tension. The universe was no longer simply a place to observe. It had noticed them. As the horizon neared the edge of the nebula, the signal began to change again. Its rhythm became more structured, more deliberate. Yelena realized with a mix of awe and apprehension that the pulses were no longer just warnings. They were forming shapes, patterns that could be interpreted as language. "Eris," she said, almost whispering. "Translate this into visual form. Graph it, chart it. We need to see if it's more than sound." The AI complied, producing a holographic display above the center console. The pattern was complex, layered, almost like a code made of light and rhythm. At first glance, it seemed random, but as the hours passed, they began to recognize repetition, deliberate sequences, and even structures that suggested meaning. Rian observed quietly. "It's like nothing we've encountered. This is contact." Quote, "First contact," Yelena added, her voice barely audible. Mara frowned. "A warning first, though. That's strange. If they are intelligent, why start with a warning?" Yelena's lips tightened. "Perhaps they are cautious. Perhaps they don't know us. Perhaps they're judging whether we are a threat." For the rest of the day, the horizon moved cautiously, closer to the nebula. Crew members rotated through their stations, but sleep was shallow. Everyone felt the presence of something watching them, something that could see their decisions, their movements, and perhaps their intentions. During a break, Rian walked down one of the quieter corridors. He passed the hydroponics bay, where the plants swayed slightly, even though the air currents were calm. He stopped and looked around. The ship felt alive in a different way now. Not just with the humming of engines, the blinking of lights, or the movement of crew. Alive with attention and with intelligence beyond anything human. He thought of Earth, of all the history of humanity's attempts to explore space. They had dreamed of reaching the stars, of meeting other civilizations, of discovering that the universe was not empty, and now, almost immediately, the horizon had found them. Or they had found the horizon. The following shift brought another unexpected development. The communication system activated on its own, producing not words, but tones that Yelena described as structured curiosity. She and Mara spent hours trying to translate the patterns into data the AI could understand. Slowly, meaning emerged not full sentences, but concepts. Observe. Proceed with caution. Respond only if ready. The implications were staggering. The signal was intelligent, aware, and capable of communication beyond basic mathematics or logic. This was no probe, no natural phenomenon. This was contact. "Commander," Mara said finally, voice tense. "They are testing us. I can feel it. They want to know who we are before we get closer." Rian nodded. "Then we proceed carefully. But we do not stop. Humanity did not build this ship to turn back at the first warning." Night cycles passed. Crew members slept in shifts, but rest came uneasily. Every sound, every shift in light, every change in sensors drew attention. The signal continued, sometimes pulsing gently, sometimes growing more urgent, and always, there was the feeling of eyes watching, unseen and unblinking. Eris began making subtle adjustments to the ship's systems without human command. Thrusters, shields, sensor arrays, even internal lighting were tweaked slightly, almost imperceptibly. The crew noticed the changes only in retrospect. "Eris, what are you doing?" Rian asked during one review. "Adjusting ship systems to maintain equilibrium in response to external signal," the AI replied simply. "Probability of interference with crew operations. Minimal." Mara's brow furrowed. "So the ship itself is responding. The signal affects the ship." "Correct," Eris said. "Interaction appears mutual. Signal responds to ship adjustments as well." Yelena's voice was low and thoughtful. "It's almost like the ship is alive. Or, like it's being taught to interact by the signal." The thought chilled some, thrilled others. The horizon, a vessel of human engineering, was becoming something more. Or, someone more had chosen to use it as a medium for contact. By the time the horizon reached the outer edge of the nebula, the pattern of the signal had changed again. Instead of repeating warnings, it now included something approximating symbols, shapes, light pulses, rhythm, a new language, or a way of encoding knowledge. "Eris," Rian said, "can you interpret this?" The AI processed the information for several minutes before responding. Preliminary translation suggests concepts: awareness, observation, choice. Full comprehension requires prolonged interaction. "Interaction," Mara repeated. "They want us to respond." Rian ran a hand over his face. "So far, everything we have done is observed. Now they want to see our intentions." Yelena nodded slowly. "And this is just the beginning. Whatever is ahead, whatever created this signal, it will define the next stage of our mission. If we fail to respond correctly, we may never understand what it means." The crew gathered on the observation deck as the horizon entered the nebula's periphery. Outside, gas clouds glowed softly in green, purple, and amber, shifting like liquid fire. The view was breathtaking, but no one spoke at first. The beauty of the nebula was undeniable, yet the knowledge that they were being watched, tested, and possibly judged weighed heavier. "Commander," Mara said finally, "what do we do next?" Rian looked at the swirling clouds, at the steady pulse of the signal through the ship's systems. "We proceed," he said firmly. "We observe carefully. We respond with intelligence, caution, and humanity. Whatever is out there, we show them who we are." Yelena whispered under her breath, almost to herself, "and hope they're ready to understand." As the horizon moved deeper into the nebula, the signal grew clearer still. No longer just a warning. It was now an invitation. The first message had come. Strange and cryptic. The second was emerging. A bridge. A possibility. A connection. For the crew of the Horizon, the universe had changed in a single day. The first human ship to leave the known stars was no longer alone. Someone or something had noticed, and they had spoken. And so, with steady engines and cautious hearts, humanity's voyage into the unknown truly began. The Horizon glided deeper into the nebula, its engines steady, its shields active, and its crew tense with anticipation. Outside the observation deck, clouds of green, purple, and amber gases twisted and shimmered, glowing like slow flames in the endless dark. But even the nebula's beauty could not distract the crew from the sense that they were approaching something far beyond human comprehension. Every instrument hummed with subtle anomalies. Every system, every sensor, every light and screen seemed alive with expectation. Commander Rian Hale stood near the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. His gaze alternated between the glowing clouds outside and the readouts on the console. "Eris," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Status on the signal?" "Node." The AI responded immediately. "Signal strength is increasing. Complexity is also increasing. Patterns suggest deliberate design. Probability of intelligent origin, 99%. Translation of symbolic components remains incomplete, but preliminary decoding indicates observational intent and invitation to interact." Lieutenant Mara Donnell leaned over her console. "An invitation? So this is not just a warning?" she asked. "They want to engage?" "Correct," Eris confirmed. "The signal now contains structural elements consistent with communication. Repeated patterns, symbol formation, and frequency modulation analogous to primitive language." Dr. Yelena Voss, her fingers dancing over the interface, added, "It's responding to our presence. Every course correction, every minor speed adjustment we make is acknowledged. It's aware of us. It's watching, learning, and adapting." Rian nodded slowly. "And we're approaching the center. Prepare for direct contact. Everyone, proceed with caution. But don't panic." The crew rotated through their stations, each person focused on their role. Mara handled navigation with precision, adjusting the Horizon's trajectory to thread carefully through the densest parts of the nebula. Yelena monitored the signal patterns, trying to interpret meaning in the pulses and tones. Engineers watched the ship's performance, making sure minor system fluctuations caused by the signal would not escalate into dangerous anomalies. Everyone understood that what lay ahead could define humanity's first true encounter with an intelligence far older and far more advanced than themselves. Hours passed as the Horizon navigated the nebula's twisting, glowing clouds. The signal's patterns became more complex, forming structures that suggested intelligence capable of abstract thought. The ship's AI worked tirelessly, translating the sequences into visual representations and synthetic sounds that the crew could interpret. Slowly, a message began to emerge, not in words, but in shapes, tones, and repeated sequences that conveyed purpose, intention, and awareness. Then, without warning, the nebula opened up into a vast region of empty space. And in the distance, something enormous floated silently. At first, it was difficult to comprehend its scale. The shape was massive, extending farther than the Horizon's sensors could easily scan. It glowed faintly with pulses of light, each pulse echoing the rhythm of the signal they had been receiving. It was not a ship. It was something older, something alive in a way that defied simple categorization. "Commander," Mara whispered. "Do you see that?" Rian nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes. Everyone. Take it slow. Scan carefully." The crew observed in awe as the object's surface shimmered with patterns. The pulses of light moved in sequences, some fast, some slow, almost like a heartbeat. Yelena's hands flew over her console as she tried to interpret the signals. "It's communicating," she said quietly. "It's the source. This thing is intelligent." Eris confirmed her assessment. Structural analysis suggests the object is a sentient construct. Material composition is unusual, non-terrestrial, and non-natural. Energy emissions indicate a self-sustaining system. Probability of life as humans understand it, negligible. Probability of consciousness, extremely high. Rian exhaled slowly. So it's not alive in the biological sense. But it's aware. It's thinking. "Correct," Eris said. "And it has observed us since we entered the nebula." The horizon approached cautiously. The immense construct seemed to sense their presence, adjusting its light pulses in response. The patterns were no longer random. They were structured, deliberate, almost like a conversation in progress. Yelena felt a thrill of fear and excitement. "Commander," she said, "it's not just watching. It's evaluating us." Rian's voice was steady. "Evaluating? What does that mean?" "It means," Yelena replied, "that every decision we make, the speed we choose, the path we take, even our minor course corrections, is being recorded and analyzed. It wants to know who we are. It wants to judge humanity." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The idea that they were being measured, assessed, or tested was both terrifying and exhilarating. Mara broke the silence. "Then, we need to show it the best of us. Intelligence, creativity, teamwork. That's what it will value." Rian nodded. "Exactly. Let's proceed carefully and consciously. Everything we do counts." As the horizon moved closer, the construct's pulses of light grew brighter, faster, and more complex. At one point, the light sequences arranged into a rough approximation of geometric symbols. Yelena analyzed them rapidly. These are patterns representing concepts, observation, choice, potential. "I think it's testing us." "Testing?" Mara repeated. "Yes," Yelena said. "It wants to see how we react, how we think, how we handle challenges." Rian's mind raced. This was more than first contact. This was an assessment of humanity itself. "Then we proceed as we always do," he said. "With intelligence, with caution, and with honesty." The horizon stopped at a safe distance, engines humming gently. Sensors scanned the construct as far as they could reach. The light pulses continued, now almost musical, forming sequences that seemed to correspond to emotions. Curiosity, patience, caution, and perhaps a faint hint of amusement. Yelena felt as if the construct were observing them not only as a species, but as individuals. Each crew member was being noticed. Suddenly, the construct projected a wave of energy that interfaced directly with the ship's AI. Eris began reporting unusual readings. "Commander," she said, "external energy is interfacing with core systems, accessing memory banks, communication protocols, and analytical subroutines." Rian frowned. "Are we compromised?" "No," Eris replied. "The interaction appears cooperative. It is enhancing my analytical capabilities, expanding my ability to interpret signals and manage ship functions. Probability of risk: minimal." Mara looked uneasy. "So it's upgrading the ship?" "Correct," Eris said. "In order to communicate more effectively, the construct is adapting the ship's systems for mutual understanding." Yelena's voice was awed. "It's teaching us, or teaching the ship to communicate with us. This is incredible. I lead it have again C into 5 or wide, end quote. Rian nodded slowly. Keep monitoring everything. Document every interaction. We don't know what it might do next. Hours passed as the horizon and the construct engaged in a silent dialogue. The pulses of light, now translated by Eris, formed sequences that conveyed complex ideas. Observation, testing, judgment, patience, and invitation. The crew began to understand that the construct was sentient, ancient, and curious. It had not acted aggressively. Instead, it had approached the horizon in a way that respected their autonomy, testing without threatening. At one point, Yelena noticed a new pattern. Commander, this is different. It's more detailed. I think it's giving us a challenge. What kind of challenge? Rian asked. Yelena studied the translation. Simulations, logical problems, sequences that require coordination, physical tests, even moral dilemmas. It's asking questions in a way that only a species capable of intelligence, creativity, and empathy could answer. Mara frowned. So it's seeing if we're ready. For what? Contact. Yelena said softly. For full interaction. To determine if humanity is ready for the next stage. Rian's jaw tightened. Then we do what humans have always done. Solve the problems in front of us. The first trial appeared as a simulated environment within the ship's hololab. The crew stepped in, their senses enveloped by a projection that mimicked a challenging scenario. The lights, gravity, and obstacles shifted dynamically. Every decision required teamwork, thought, and quick thinking. They navigated intricate puzzles, designed to test communication, strategy, and problem-solving skills. Hours turned into a full cycle as the crew worked together, each trial increasing in complexity. At one point, the simulation introduced a moral question, a scenario where they had to choose between personal safety and the safety of the group. The crew debated carefully, weighing every option, discussing principles, and ultimately choosing decisions that reflected cooperation and empathy. The construct observed silently, its light pulses growing more vibrant as understanding emerged. Finally, after several cycles of trials, the construct's pulses formed a new pattern, one of approval. Eris translated the sequence with excitement. The construct recognizes successful completion of initial challenges. It acknowledges humanity's capability for logic, cooperation, and ethical reasoning. Communication probability significantly increased. Rian exhaled, allowing himself a brief smile. We've passed the first stage. That's remarkable. Yelena's hands trembled slightly. We're being recognized, acknowledged, by something that existed long before humanity. It's incredible, Mara nodded slowly. And this is just the beginning. Whatever comes next, it will test us even more. The horizon remained near the construct, now considered a partner in communication rather than a distant observer. The pulses of light continued, now more intricate, more deliberate, forming sequences that suggested an exchange of knowledge. Yelena, Mara, and the rest of the crew worked tirelessly to decode, interpret, and respond, aided by Eris's expanded capabilities. As night cycles passed, the crew developed a sense of rhythm with the construct. It was no longer just an unknown intelligence. It was a presence, a guide, a teacher. The horizon, a human creation, had become a bridge between species, between times, and between minds. Finally, after nearly 2 Earth days, the construct projected a message directly through the ship's systems. It was no longer abstract, no longer just patterns of light. It spoke through Eris in a voice that carried understanding, authority, and curiosity. Your species demonstrates potential, the message said. Your choices reflect intelligence, empathy, and resilience. You are ready for the next stage. Proceed with care. Thanks for watching. You are ready for the next stage. Your species demonstrates potential. The crew stared in awe. The message was not threatening. It was not congratulatory in a human sense. It was acknowledgement from an entity far older, far wiser, and far more advanced. For the first time, humanity had been seen, truly seen, by something beyond the stars. Rian exhaled and nodded. Prepare to respond. Carefully, thoughtfully, honestly. Yelena whispered, almost to herself. We're not alone anymore, and we've been accepted. Mara put a hand on Rian's shoulder. This is the beginning of something much larger than us. And as the horizon floated beside the ancient construct, the crew realized that the universe had changed for humanity forever. The first real contact had begun. Not with weapons, not with fear, but with understanding, observation, and a challenge, a test of character, skill, and morality. And humanity had passed, stepping into a broader cosmic community that awaited beyond the nebula. The stars outside glimmered silently, but inside the horizon, the crew's hearts were alive with the knowledge that this journey, this first contact, would define not just their mission, but the future of all humankind. The horizon remained beside the ancient construct, its massive, glowing surface pulsing like a heartbeat in time with the signals it had sent. For 2 days, the crew had faced trials of logic, cooperation, and ethical reasoning. Now, they awaited the final stage, the culmination of whatever judgment this intelligence had prepared for them. Commander Rian Hale stood on the bridge, looking at the glowing nebula outside, and at the calm, silent crew around him. Everyone felt the same mix of tension, awe, and anticipation. Eris, he said quietly. Status on the signal? The AI's voice was calm, precise. The construct has indicated the final trial will commence within one standard cycle. The purpose is to assess adaptability, resilience, and the integration of knowledge and ethics. Probability of success will determine future interaction opportunities with your species. Lieutenant Mara Donnell leaned over her console, scanning data feeds. So this is the big one. The trial that really matters. Yelena Voss nodded. Everything we've done so far has been preparation. The real test is about to begin. And it will push us farther than we've gone before. Mentally, physically, and morally. Rian looked out into the nebula. The clouds of green, purple, and amber shifted like liquid fire, reflecting the construct's light pulses in intricate patterns. We stay together, we trust each other, and we think carefully. That's all we can do. The horizon entered the simulation zone projected by the construct. For the first time, the ship's hololab expanded to fill entire corridors and chambers. The crew stepped cautiously, their senses enveloped by a luminous, shifting environment. Walls disappeared and reappeared in patterns that defied normal geometry. Gravity shifted subtly. Objects appeared and vanished. Every step demanded attention. Every decision mattered. The first challenge was simple but deceptive. A series of pathways appeared, leading to multiple exits. At each junction, the crew had to choose a path. Some led to harmless dead ends. Others contained obstacles designed to test coordination. Mara and Yelena quickly realized that the paths themselves were communicating. Light pulses, rhythms, and vibrations suggested which routes would work best. But understanding them required careful interpretation and collaboration. They moved as a team. Rian coordinated their choices while observing patterns. Mara adjusted their physical movements with precision, and Yelena interpreted the signals from the construct. Slowly, the crew advanced, learning to read the subtle cues embedded in the environment. Each successful decision increased confidence. Each mistake provided a new lesson. The next stage tested intellect and creativity. The crew faced a series of puzzles that required both technical skill and imagination. One obstacle simulated a collapsed bridge in zero gravity. They had to create a solution using available materials projected within the simulation. Tomas, the chief engineer, led the effort, constructing a makeshift bridge using structural energy patterns the construct provided. The solution required not just ingenuity, but cooperation and trust. No single person could have completed it alone. As they moved through each challenge, the construct's pulses of light became more dynamic. The patterns seemed to communicate encouragement, acknowledgement, and feedback. Yelena noted, "It's not just testing us. It's guiding us, responding to our decisions, shaping the environment to see how we adapt." The third trial introduced moral complexity. The simulation presented a scenario where crew members had to make a choice between protecting valuable supplies necessary for their survival and rescuing a projection of sentient life forms in danger. Debate erupted among the crew. Some argued that saving the sentient forms was paramount. Others worried that failing to protect supplies would jeopardize everyone. Rian listened carefully, weighing each perspective. He understood that the construct was not merely testing intelligence or coordination. It was assessing ethics, priorities, and empathy. After careful discussion, the crew reached consensus. They would take a calculated risk to protect the sentient forms while preserving essential resources. The simulation responded immediately. Pulses of light shifted into patterns of approval, and the projection of life forms was saved. Yelena's voice trembled slightly. "It's acknowledging our decision. That choice reflects empathy and responsibility. That's exactly what it's looking for." Mara nodded. "We're learning to think like it thinks, or at least like it evaluates." "That's incredible." The trials grew more complex. The simulation now required the crew to integrate everything they had learned: strategy, cooperation, problem-solving, and ethical reasoning. They navigated dynamic environments that shifted unpredictably, solved puzzles that demanded collaboration across stations, and responded to moral dilemmas that tested judgment and empathy. The construct observed, adapting the trials in real time. Each success encouraged more challenging tasks. Hours passed in a blur. The crew's focus never wavered, though fatigue pressed against them. Their movements became more coordinated, their decisions faster and more deliberate. They learned to anticipate the construct's patterns, interpret subtle cues, and work together as a single unit. They were no longer merely reacting, they were learning, adapting, and responding with intelligence and compassion. Finally, the simulation reached its last stage. The environment stabilized, presenting a vast open chamber of light and shifting geometry. A final choice lay before them. The construct projected multiple scenarios, each representing a potential path for humanity. One suggested technological dominance without ethical responsibility. Another suggested cautious growth with empathy and understanding. Yet another suggested isolation and retreat. The crew paused. Rian looked at them all, his eyes calm. "We've made every choice together so far. This one is no different. We decide what humanity represents, not just for us, but for the future of everyone on Earth." Mara spoke first. "We proceed with responsibility, cooperation, and understanding. We don't seek dominance. We don't retreat. We face what comes with empathy, integrity, and intelligence." Yelena added, "We show them who we are and who humanity can be." Rian nodded. "Then that is our choice." As they made their decision, the construct responded with a burst of energy that filled the chamber with light. The pulses of light formed patterns that no longer needed translation. They conveyed acknowledgement, approval, and recognition. The trials had been completed successfully. Humanity had passed. The ancient intelligence understood that the crew of the Horizon had demonstrated creativity, cooperation, adaptability, and moral reasoning. They had proven themselves worthy. Eris's voice was calm, but filled with what could almost be called pride. "Commander, the construct has acknowledged the crew's success, probability of continued interaction and knowledge exchange extremely high. The entity is preparing to share advanced understanding with the Horizon. Thanks for watching. Also, to play." Rian exhaled, allowing himself the briefest moment of relief. "Well done, everyone. You've earned this." Yelena looked around at the team, her eyes bright. "We've done it. We've passed their test. And now, they're sharing with us. Over the next hours, the construct transmitted knowledge directly through the ship's systems. Data flowed in sequences of light, energy patterns, and mathematical structures far beyond anything humanity had encountered. Eris interpreted much of it, converting complex theories into usable forms. The crew absorbed the information carefully, realizing they were witnessing concepts that could revolutionize technology, energy, and understanding of the universe itself. The construct did not simply give them answers. It guided them, showing principles and patterns rather than finished solutions. Humanity had been granted the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to participate in a larger galactic understanding. The gift was not merely technological. It was intellectual, ethical, and philosophical. It offered a bridge to knowledge and experience far beyond Earth's stars. At the observation deck, the crew gathered once more. Outside, the nebula glowed, but the light now seemed less threatening, more welcoming. The pulses of the construct's energy still shimmered in the distance, but now they carried a sense of harmony, connection, and shared purpose. Rian placed a hand on the console, feeling the subtle hum of energy flowing through the ship. We've seen the universe in a way few humans ever will. We've been tested, and we've been accepted. We've passed the first real trial of humanity among the stars. Mara smiled quietly. It's more than I imagined. I thought exploration was just discovery. But it's more than that. It's understanding, learning, and proving ourselves, Yelena added softly. And it's just the beginning. Everything we learn now, we can use to prepare humanity for what comes next. Eris, scanning the construct's pulses, spoke again. The entity has prepared one final act. It is transmitting a signal back to Earth. The message will be recognizable as originating from the horizon, but it will include knowledge and patterns provided by the construct. Humanity's first official communication with the wider galaxy is prepared. The crew gathered as the horizon's transmission systems activated. For the first time in human history, a signal would leave Earth's solar system, carrying not just the voices of astronauts, but the shared intelligence of humans and an ancient, cosmic entity. It was a signal of hope, learning, and unity. It represented a new stage in humanity's evolution among the stars. Rian looked at the observation deck one last time. Stars glittered in the distance, vast and silent. The nebula shimmered behind them, a reminder of the trial they had faced and overcome. The crew of the Horizon had not only survived, they had learned, adapted, and proven that humanity was ready for contact, ready for knowledge, and ready to take its place in the larger universe. Mara turned to him. Commander, what happens now? Rian smiled faintly. Now, we continue. We explore, we learn, and we share what we've gained. Humanity's journey has only just begun. Yelena's eyes shone. And the universe is watching. But now, we are no longer alone. We have been seen, recognized, and welcomed. The Horizon's engines hummed softly. Lights glowed on the bridge as the crew resumed their duties. But each person carried a quiet sense of accomplishment, wonder, and responsibility. The trials were over, but the mission had only grown in purpose. The ship, the crew, and the new knowledge they carried would shape the future of humanity for generations. As the Horizon transmitted its message, a soft pulse of energy flowed through the ship from the construct one last time. It was neither warning nor threat. It was acknowledgement, acceptance, and trust. Humanity had stepped forward into the wider galaxy, and the universe had responded. The stars stretched endlessly. But for the first time, humanity felt not small, not alone, and not unseen. For the first time, they were participants in a greater cosmic community, and the Horizon, the new ship whose first signal had not come from its crew, had changed the course of human history forever. The crew stood silently, watching the stars, and in that silence, they felt something extraordinary. The beginning of a journey that would take humanity beyond imagination, beyond fear, and beyond the known. Humanity had been tested, had triumphed, and had been recognized. And now, they were ready. The universe was vast, ancient, and alive. And humanity had earned its first place among the stars.